Welcome to 9 Plus Wine, episode 5. Myself and Nathan.
Welcome. It's actually this. We're going all over the place. Last week it was night time. This week's it's daytime.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky. I'm glad that we can probably start doing a bit more consistency from next week because we're not going to have a choice.
I'll be honest, on a Saturday morning at 9:18 a.m. in the morning, there is nothing more I want than some Highfield Savvy B.
You're not going to say the other word.
No.
No, we got to say it. I think it's Marlborough.
Marlborough.
I think that's right. So this is a Savvy B, so a white wine from New Zealand. I don't know why. Someone marketed to me very well when Nick must have done something important to me, so I bought a lot of wine for him and then forgot about it for like 6 months.
Here we are.
So we're going to try it. If you want to buy some, I have it, but I'm going to give some to Nick.
Last week, the ratings for the last wine, which I can't remember what it was, but it was a limited production in 2017, I think it was.
2016.
Okay, 2016. I gave an 8.2.
I gave 8.7.
So pretty high standard.
And for everyone that doesn't know, Nick is predominantly more white drinker, and I'm more red. So
I'm enjoying the red. I'm enjoying the red a bit more now. I went to Saki last weekend.
Yeah,
and was hooking into a bottle of red, and it was good stuff.
What red was it?
I don't know, whatever the top of the list was. The cheapest one there was expensive.
Did you hear the Robin Hood Snacks talking about the second cheapest wine on the list should be what you buy?
Okay. No,
And the theory behind that is because the one that's the cheapest, they know that nobody's going to buy it, so they jack the price up, and then the one that's second cheapest is the one that people buy. So,
okay,
that's apparently.
I'll try the second cheapest next time.
Apparently, if you're a cheap ass, that's how you pick wine at a restaurant, because they are inflated prices. But anyway, let's have a one sip competition.
What's that? Grape selection and cold fermentation deliver an abundant spectrum of tropical and herbal aromas.
Oof. Oh. I can smell white wine. How about you? Sniffy, sniff, sniff. So we've got our white wine glasses. I don't know if you meant to do that with white wine.
Cheers. Bit tangy.
Astringent.
It's still good. Look,
bitey.
You know, it's not as good as last week's. I'm going to give that a 6-1.
I'm going to give that a 5-2.
Fuck me. Come on, mate.
I don't like it. It's not my forte.
Look, that's a summer 3 p.m. wharf bar in your suit.
Yeah.
Sipping on that until you get into the reds. And then it's game over.
I agree. So let's get into the podcast. We had some very good feedback this week. We were very happy with it. We had a couple of different people message us, but the one that we wanted to talk about was a question that we got from a friend of ours. Our good friend Dylan, valued listener, asked, how did you prepare to leave your comfort zone initially, and what do you do to make sure you back yourself? How did you or do you deal with negative thoughts from yourselves or others, or even negative opinions from other people saying you're too young, etc.?
I mean, yeah, it is a great question. I think a lot of people our age probably go through that.
I think everyone goes through that.
Yeah. So my headspace, what I just spoke to Nathan about, was the fact that both myself and Nathan kind of just jump into shit without really thinking about it and just kind of deal with it after. And that's worked to our benefit for both of us. I mean, I'm in a situation now where, as I've said, I'm dealing with people a lot older than me, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. You know, there's a few points that we'll outline that we think make it so it doesn't really, age doesn't really matter, experience doesn't really matter. It's more so all a mindset thing.
It's all a mental game. And I think you'll find a common theme between when we answer stuff. It always comes back to where you are in your headspace. And there's little tricks that you can do to even help yourself get through shit like that. For example, one of the little mental tricks that I use when people are, or more so when like there's self-doubt, like if I'm beating myself up over something, I like to remind myself everybody else fucks up too, and nobody's really paying attention to what I do that is essentially a mistake. So when I make a mistake, I normally just realize like I'm the only one that's got to deal with this. Nobody else actually cares that I fucked up, and that normally helps me move on, get over it, and just try not to dwell on the mistakes you make, because like I said, everyone else fucks up. Everyone else has their own shit to deal with. Everyone makes mistakes. It's only human. So that's normally a very helpful mindset to have when you're dealing with self-doubt.
Yeah.
I think.
In for instance, his position with a bit more responsibility, I think accountability is the key. You know, don't be afraid to take ownership for something like a decision you've made or something that's happened that you're, I guess, managing. People won't question you if you're accountable for your actions. If you take ownership for something that's happened, you know, mistakes are going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to fuck up.
100%.
Everyone makes mistakes. As Nathan just said, it's just the reality. Okay, you're not going to be perfect. Mistakes are going to happen. Own up to them. Own the problem.
Yeah.
Figure out the solution. Don't just finger point. Like, okay, if anyone has finger pointed before, do you actually feel satisfied when you finger point? No. You feel empty as shit. You're just avoiding confrontation.
Yeah. And I think that, like, it's funny because everyone thinks that it's like, it's weak to admit that sort of stuff. But when have you ever looked at someone that has taken accountability for a mistake they've made, or like owned up, or talked about like even mental struggles that they've had? If you've ever seen someone take accountability for that shit and talk about it, you've never ever saw that person and thought less of them. You've always thought more. Anyone that, like, people that get up on stage and say like, I've gone through this and that, the end outcome is I always think more of that person, not less. And it's funny because everyone thinks people will think less of them, but it's just not true.
No. And it's a good way to build trust with the people that you work with
100%.
or your management. If you take ownership of a problem and you've got a solution rather than just, hey, this is old mate Jerry's fault. You come and you say, look, I stuffed up. This is what I think we should do. That will go a long way. One with respect and one with trust.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, that's a good point.
Well, I mean, it's not like when you think about the person, you need to think about managing up. So you need to think about how the person's thinking and what they want to hear. They don't want to have to think for you. You're getting paid to manage a situation. So you shouldn't be going to them with a problem, blaming someone else and then having no solution. That's a waste of their time. So my suggestion would be, if you fucked up, you would figure out a solution. You'd go to the guy and say, I fucked up, but this is what we're going to do to fix it. Yeah. And his pants will literally explode. Yeah. Like, seriously, you'll get that much respect for owning up to a situation and coming up with something else to fix the problem.
I completely agree. Now that I've been working, well, I actually haven't worked day shift at my day job since I was a third year apprentice, so like 3 years ago now. And now the people that manage the level above me, they're aware that if I'm on a back shift, if something goes wrong in my process area, I almost never ever call my bosses to work it out. I work it out myself, and I'm always like, it's fucking 11 o'clock. My boss is asleep. I don't want to call him. And the only time they've ever been called is when someone above me has called them for me. And that fucking shits me. That actually, I've talked to you about this a few times at work. I'm not going to go.
Yeah, I was going to say, be careful what you say, mate. Yeah. Stay pretty blasé.
I'm glad I just stopped myself. That could have been disastrous. But look, I think that if you try and fix it, and even if you don't get it perfect, the people above you or the people that are looking at what you're doing are going to respect that more than if you just call them and ask for their opinion. So yeah, that's how I normally work it out. And when you get it right, your level of self-confidence goes up as well. Instead of asking them, when you can still be like, oh, that's what I thought, but I didn't do it. If you just test and try, get better. You're going to boost your own self-confidence and people are going to trust you more. And then when you don't really know an answer, you just back yourself and they'll believe you.
Yeah. So that flows into the next part, the self-confidence piece. When you're in the deep end,
Yeah.
backing yourself would probably have to be the hardest thing to do. So, for instance, in the situation that Dylan's probably in, he's going to have decisions that he needs to make that old mate Jerry in the back, who's been working for 15 years, thinks wrong.
Longer. 15 years longer.
Yeah, of course. And he's going to have an opinion because he's been there for 15 years. But the reality is he's not in that position and he's not in it for a reason. Yeah. So you're in it because your boss thinks that you can make the right decision. So the key to that is owning the decision that you make and going forward with it. People will second guess you if you're asking, like if you don't look like you're backing yourself in your decision, people will second guess you, which in that sort of role 100%. Would be
well, it also depends. Like it depends on what your role is. It's funny that we touched on coronavirus before, but Trump, actually, let's wait for that.
Yeah. So to give you an example, in my role, if I think something is of good value and I want to buy it, I need to own that. And if I buy the stuff and it turns out to be the wrong sort of level or it's costing the system money, I need to own that problem. Yeah. Okay. I can't blame anyone else but myself because I made the call. And two, I need to own that, whether it was a good move or not a good move.
Yeah. Well, like that's such a important thing because if you can take accountability for everything that you do, it's a massive unlock for, I guess, happiness in general. If you can take accountability, even for the things that aren't your fault, and put all the pressure on yourself, it actually unlocks this fucking sense of like, okay, well, nobody else is in control of what I'm doing. I don't have to rely on the opinions, the decisions of anyone else because I'm making all the decisions. And if I fuck up, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Just take the ownership.
Take the ownership. Like, even just a super far-fetched thing, like fucking, I don't know, it's raining here. I could live somewhere else.
That's my fault. I'm shit.
That's my fault. And if you can get into that, then it's a lot easier to take accountability for shit that you actually do wrong.
Yeah, we're not saying to get into self-degradation, but the reality is if you make yourself accountable, you're never going to get complacent. You're never going to think that your shit doesn't stink. Yeah. You're always going to be working hard to get better at whatever you're doing. There's another thing that I want to talk about, which we'll talk about next week, and that's the difference between, I think, work-life balance and work-life synergy.
What's that?
I think there's a big difference, and I think that's going to be a bit more prevalent in the future, and it's just moving your mindset about how you think about work.
Yeah, that's important.
It'd be interesting to hear your take on it, but we can talk about next fortnight or next week.
It's another thing that I would get worked up about and probably shouldn't talk about in regards to my job just because there's fucking policies about talking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good topic.
Anyway, just to touch on that, thank you, Dylan, for reaching out with that sort of question.
Did we cover all that? Did we talk about when people actually look you in the face and all behind your back and say like, you shouldn't be in that position?
Yeah. And look, and that goes back to other points that we've made. Okay. This isn't a passive aggressive play. If you're in that sort of position and this is happening where someone's questioning what you're doing, talk to them directly about it. Don't play the little fucking political games. Go up directly and talk to them about it. And it doesn't have to be, you have a problem with me. Tell me what your problem is. It can be like, look, I understand why you think the way you think. Can you give me some feedback? What are you noticing that I'm doing that could be an opportunity for me? Turn it into that. So that way, if they say something stupid, like, oh, you're too young for this, you don't know what you're doing, they just look like an absolute twat. Like they haven't actually given any thought. They just have a problem with it because you're younger than them. Yeah. It only makes them look worse anyway.
And I find in those scenarios, I always think that it's actually something going on within themselves. It's always oh shit, that person's hating on me. That's because they're actually not happy with the shit in their life. So I always like to think if someone has enough time to look at what I'm doing, make a judgment that that's bad and then speak about it, I tend to think, and I'm probably right, that they are in a bad place. So I normally feel empathetic to them, like they're struggling with their own shit. And if I can, I'll be like, hey, dude, are you all right? 9 out of 10 guys won't tell you that they're not okay. And that's also a sign of weakness. But that's my point on that. I think a lot of people that are judgmental and rude are actually not in the best place themselves. But yeah.
Just to keep it just on the work side of things, another reason why they probably have that problem with you is what I spoke to Nathan earlier about. Like, if they've been there for 10 or 15 years and you're, 24, going into a management position, managing a 35-year-old, of course they're going to have a problem with it. But there's a reason why they're not in that position. They can't take ownership for the decisions they make, or they don't want to, which is fine. If you just want to work your 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, pat the cat when you go home, I'm stoked. I'm stoked for you. You have your lamb, your 3 veg, you do all that. I'm happy for you. You don't have to stress. But the reality is there's some people that are going to be younger than you that want to take that ownership and want to pursue further places, which is exactly what Dylan's doing. So it would just be, accepting them for where they want to be in life, but it's just at the same time, building that relationship with them by owning your mistakes, backing yourself, and keeping yourself accountable. 100%. They'll end up respecting you for that. And if they don't, they're a waste of time. You should performance manage them out by getting them to rake leaves every day.
Do you want to talk about what you did at Macca's?
No. We can't go into detail. If you have a question about what we did in those exact scenarios, just message us directly or have a beer with us at the George.
Yes.
A cider at the George.
Yeah. Fuck you. No, you can
cider.
drink whatever you want. I will actually probably never, ever drink my own cider on this podcast. It just doesn't feel comfortable.
The only time I would suggest you do that is when you bring out one of the other stuff that you've got coming up.
It just feels like a sales pitch, and I'm not here for that.
Yeah, but it matches what we're doing.
Yeah, true.
And I'll give a rating. I mean, we've got an 8.2 and a 6.
But no one's going to believe it.
I'll believe it. My ratings have been quite consistent. Yours have just been sporadic.
How is it? I like red. I don't like white. This in particular isn't a good white.
Well, then
anyway.
why didn't you give it a 4.2?
Because what did I say?
You said 5.9, 5.1.
I don't know.
You got to remember.
Doesn't matter because it's shit.
So the other thing I just wanted to quickly touch on, obviously it's on every person's news article ever. Look, to be honest, when stuff like this happens, Bloomberg, your Wall Street Journal, everyone loves it because it's easy to report on. They don't have to do any work. It's just in your face. Coronavirus is impacting the financial economy as we speak. Now, I've been having some interesting discussions with some people about what their perspective is. The reality is Warren Buffett has his shopping trolley out right now. It's empty, and he's walking through a Walmart as we speak. Stock. $1 billion here, $1 billion there. He's buying up because the reality is in 30 years' time, do you think coronavirus is going to be an issue to the economy? Fuck no. The GFC, the biggest meltdown in history, 11 years ago. Where are the stocks now? Well, they were at all-time highs previous to the coronavirus.
It's important.
11 years later.
Yeah.
Time in the game is more important than picking the market.
Yeah, it's basically impossible to pick the market. But there's a lot of... I was listening to Ben Shapiro on this yesterday. And 2 points. I have not been in the stock market for probably since July last year when I fucking shit myself and pulled out all the money that I had. I didn't really make any money on the... 4 months that I was in the game.
Yeah.
And it is now after this correction. So for people that don't know anything about stocks, there's corrections and there's a bear market. The last bear market was in 2008. And since World War II, there's been on average 2.5 corrections a year. So what we are seeing...
Wait, a correction every 2.5 years or 2.5 corrections?
2.5 corrections a year.
Oh, which is the drop within... Okay, yeah.
And a correction is basically, from recent highs, a drop of 10%. And a bear market is a drop of 20%. I'm lucky I read this yesterday. I wouldn't have any of that knowledge. So with the coronavirus, the media is loving to play it up and be like, the world's fucked. There's people at work saying that like taking masks home because they're worried that they're going to get fucked in Sydney because 2 buildings were apparently evacuated. But the media and probably people with invested interest in the stock market own pieces of media and want to blow this out of proportion so that they can buy when stocks are low.
Yeah,
which
wow.
I think is fucking smart.
That's a good way of looking at
And
it.
I'm not I normally like to think that money rules everything, and that's why things happen like this and gets blown out of proportion. The reality is nobody at all knows what the fuck's going on with coronavirus because China hasn't really given out any facts, and anything they've given out has been carefully released because they want to keep this inside. But in the end, this is the first time since July I've looked at putting money back in the market.
Yeah.
Because it's a good time to buy if you don't think it's going to keep going down. So on Monday, Nick wanted me to talk about this. I'm going to have a look over the weekend at what the fuck's going on, what the news is it getting worse, is it flattening out? And I'll make a decision if I want to buy any stocks on Monday and if I can afford it.
Okay, so my biggest thing is I won't look at the news. Because I'll look at the news and I'll think that's noise. It's again what you spoke about.
Noise controls the market.
I get that, but time in the game.
I agree.
Like if you're using the news to make a decision whether to buy the stock, you're going to use the noise to make a decision whether to sell the stock, which is what we did, which is what you did last June.
did, yeah.
Exactly. I didn't do it and I just waited. Sure, you get emotional about it. You're like, wow, I lost $10,000 today. That sucks. But the reality is, if Buffett is saying this, just look at what the man's done. Like, obviously he's a smarter guy than I am and he's done certain things with businesses, but it's time in the game. You know, like look at how 2008 got impacted and look at where the stock is now.
It took 6 years or 7 years to recover to where the market was after a full bear market, which I think there's been like 6 or 7 bear markets on average every 8 to 10 years since World War II. So we're overdue for one, but that doesn't mean that this is going to be one either. And even the last bear market, after 6 years, all of your money would have been back to where it originally was before that crash.
If anyone is that concerned and they're scared of the stock market, the only thing I would then do is either buy an index fund like Vanguard, or 2, get bank shares, set up a regular savings plan to put more money into bank shares, set up a DRP, look that up on Google, make sure that that's reinvesting your money from the dividends, and then just sit on that for 30 years. And I guarantee you'll have as much money as your superannuation fund by the time that hits 30-year value.
We need to wrap this up. But
what's your thought on that quickly? 10 seconds.
On what you just said?
Yes.
Yeah, like if I wasn't about to put a lot of money into my business, I would be putting most of my money into stocks and dividends. I think it's a great idea. I think that the long-term investment in that has proven to pay off. If you look at statistically, business is the number one asset that you can hold if you run it well. But actually, like 90% of businesses fail. Stocks is the second best investment you can make in the long term, and then real estate. So that's and banks is like number 8. So fuck putting your money in the bank. Don't do that.
I love getting 2.5% a year.
That's my take. A Vanguard fund does about 11% annually.
Yeah.
And we're going to wrap this up.
So that's us. If you have opinions on
our
stock advice, please have a discussion with me because I want to learn more as well.
He's much more knowledgeable about it than I am. So talk to him about it. He's a good bloke, if you don't already know.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah.
That's it for this week, guys. Next fortnight. Actually, just quickly, so the advice we just gave could completely change in the next 5 days if the way the media says coronavirus is going actually goes that way.
Yeah. So today's the 29th for reference.
Yep. So when are we on next? Next fortnight?
In a fortnight.
In a fortnight now. Okay, cool.
Fortnightly because of X and Y, which we'll discuss next time. Cheers.
So yeah.